They always say, Zhangsheng, you already have everything. Just give in to Yi Yi. Yi Yi has depression. But what they don't know is that I also have depression. And I have been diagnosed with late-stage pancreatic cancer. My days are numbered. Still, I find some semblance of relief in the thought. Living has become too exhausting, until they once again forced me to concede. I jumped off the 10th floor in front of them. The pain of pancreatic cancer was unbearable. I just wished to die quickly. Finally, they lost their poise, but I had my ashes scattered in the wind by a friend. All I left behind was a sharp blade to slash apart the veil shading this deformed relationship, and expose our disgraceful past to the world. Let them struggle and suffer as they sank into a painful mire. In the next life, may we not meet again. Xianxia, you're back. The moment I walked in, my boyfriend, Lu Nanyu, embraced me. Seeing him in his crisp suit, smelling the cologne I'd selected for him, I asked, "Are you going out?" Chen Yi said Yi Yi was crying again and asked me to come, he replied, patting my back and loosening his hold on me. "Dinner's ready on the table, remember to eat." He attempted to kiss the corner of my lips, but I dodged it. His expression turned somewhat awkward as he asked, "Sheng, what's wrong? Can't you not go? Stay home with me, please. Today is..." I was almost pleading, gripping the end of his sleeve. "Sheng, be good." He patted my head as if comforting a child, interrupting me. "Yi Yi is ill. As her future brother-in-law, I can't refuse to see her." As he said this, he held no trace of guilt, leaned in and kissed my forehead. "Besides, my future mother-in-law is there. I need to leave a good impression, right? Why wouldn't she call for Yi Yi instead of her sisters?" I sneered inside but kept my words to myself. All I did was silently let go of Lu Nanyu's cuff and the tightly folded diagnosis in my purse. I wanted to struggle a little more. "Today is my birthday, Lu Nanyu. You promised to spend every birthday with me." "Yeah?" Lu Nanyu's voice was still relaxed. He pinched my nose affectionately. "Wife, just look back. I made your favorite dishes for you. I put in a lot of effort. I'll be right back after I take the meal to Yi Yi. I'll be here to celebrate your birthday. Be good." "Forget it, you go." Eventually I gave up, throwing my keys at the entrance, taking off my shoes to enter the room. I didn't look back. The soft sound of the door closing echoed behind me. Do you think he realized I'm angry? He must have known. Why else would he leave without a word? But he still left. I knew it all along. Lu Nanyu likes Song Yi Yi. He initially approached me all for Song Yi's sake. As for why he ended up choosing me, getting engaged and getting married soon, it might be because he was touched by my decades of loyal servitude, dog-like behavior. Hey, I couldn't help remembering Lu Shi's words, filled with mockery. If I were a boy, I would have been totally moved by you too. Zhang Shengsheng, you are worth something, right? I understood her frustration with me, yet I persistently hugged her arm, nagging and whining like a spoiled child. She, do you know? I just wanted to find someone who would choose me over Song Yi Yi, even if he hesitated a bit, as long as he eventually chose me. That would suffice. But it seems I really am not likable. I can't hold on to this person. A sudden cramp from my upper abdomen forced me to lean over my belly. The smell of food lingered on my nose, and with great difficulty I hobbled over to the dining table. Indeed, the table was filled with dishes I love, all of which seemed carefully cooked. But just looking at those few dishes with a portion removed made me feel nauseous. I couldn't help rushing to the bathroom to throw up, although there was nothing in my stomach. Until my tears ran dry, all I could vomit was gastric acid. I washed my face and stepped out The first thing I did was sweep all the things on the table to the floor. It's disgusting. I was shaking all over. But that wasn't enough. When I saw my reflection on the TV screen, I was frightened. Is that really me? Looking frail and haggard, leaning heavily and breathing heavily with a frenzied and sickly gaze. I grabbed something and smashed it at the TV. Then I started smashing other things. Finally, exhausted, I sat on the chaotic floor, gasping for breath. I thought I should cry, but all I felt was numbness. But before I could take a break, the piercing ringtone of my mobile phone rang by my feet. I picked up the phone and the contact name popped up: Chen Suzhen. Instinctively, I wanted to throw it away, But in my heart, I clung to a guilt-ridden hope. I answered the call, my voice full of hurt. "Hello, Mom." Before I could utter another word, the loud voice of Miss Chen Suzhen blared from the other side of the handset, alarming me and making my stomach hurt even more. My father died early, so she raised my siblings and me along with Song Yiyi. Thus she became incredibly stern and argumentative. When we were little, the neighbors used to say, "Chen Suzhen's mouth is truly venomous, like a knife." Now she wielded that knife and aimed its tip at her own daughter. "Zhang Sheng, why hasn't Lu come yet? Did you hold him up?" "I don't want to say it, Zhang Sheng. You're Yi's sister. She's sick and wants Lu to be with her. Do you have to persist in being so unreasonable? You only feel better seeing Yi in a worse state, am I right?" Yeah, I swallowed back the words that were coming out of my mouth. Unapologetically expressing my resentment, I replied fiercely, "Chen Suzhen, you all cherish Song Yi, but me ... I wish she were dead." I guess she was getting ready to denounce me as cruel. But I had already hung up the phone. Checking the time, it only takes 20 minutes from my home to the hospital. Yet after a mere 5 minutes, she called anxiously. She obviously values Song Yi more than her own eyes. But it makes sense, I sneered and curved the corner of my mouth. After all, Lu Nunyu had always been at her beck and call, never late for even a minute. In the hospital, Chen Suzhen had just hung up the phone. When she heard the busy signal coming from her cell phone, indicating she had been hung up on. Her face flushed with rage. She wanted to call back, but heard the voicemail indicating that the other party had turned off their device. Knowing that she had been blocked, Chen Suzhen was even more angry. Zhang Sheng, that ungrateful girl, her own daughter. Yet she didn't inherit even half of Yi's kindness and docility. "I regret giving birth to her," Chen Suzhen thought bitterly. She turned around, her gaze through the glass in the door falling on the girl sitting on the hospital bed. Her face softened immediately. There was also a tall man in the room, facing away from Chen Suzhen, carefully feeding Song Yi fruit. Song Yi gave her a distant smile, coquettishly asking, "Mom, why hasn't Brother Lu come yet? Did he get lost on the way to the ward? You should go find him." Okay." Chen Suzhen agreed cheerfully and headed towards the elevator. Song Yi had started calling Chen Suzhen Mom a long time ago. She remembered how Chen Suzhen had been moved to tears, hugging Song Yi and calling her darling. But her face changed as soon as Zhang Sheng walked in. "Speak. Where were you so late? Did you go messing around with those sketchy people?" At that moment, Song Yi would always take Chen Suzhen's hand. "Mom, don't say that. Those people are Sheng's friends." With just one sentence, she indirectly condemned Zhang Sheng. As expected, upon hearing this, Chen Suzhen's face darkened even further. She humphed, took Yi and went into the room. Before leaving, Song Yi gave Zhang Sheng a provocative look. At that time, Zhang Sheng didn't say a word. She had no expressions, just silently tending to the bandage on her wrist, sitting alone by the dinner table, and dejectedly devouring the leftover food. When Chen Suzhen saw Lu Nunyu rushing over at the elevator entrance, she took the lunchbox from his hand, her words full of complaints, of course, towards Zhang Sheng. "Zhang Sheng is too unreasonable. She doesn't care about her own sister and even tries to obstruct you. Lu, you need to teach her a lesson. It's laughable. The mother couldn't teach her own daughter well, but expected her daughter's boyfriend to do it." Chen Suzhen wanted to seek agreement from Lu Nunyu, but when she turned around, she saw his somewhat stiff expression and a slight surprise in his eyes. He paused and gently reminded, "Aunt Chen, today is Sheng's birthday. He wanted to ask if she knew, but he guessed that the answer would likely be negative, so he politely stopped. Chen Suzhen was clearly taken aback. However, she casually waved her hand, but noticeably less confident than before. "Just a birthday. Is it as important as her sister? She has plenty more birthdays. Celebrating it next year would be the same." She didn't know that Zhang Sheng didn't have a next year. Late-stage pancreatic cancer patients at best only have 3 to 6 months left. Zhang Sheng had given up all treatment and probably wouldn't last that long. In the hospital room, not knowing what Zhang Chen said, he and Song Yi were laughing heartily. Seeing Lu Nunyu walk in, Song Yi's laughter intensified, and she hurriedly invited him to sit down, but looking at her smile, Lu Nonyu couldn't help but think that when he goes back to celebrate Sheng's birthday, she would surely look happier than Song Yiyi. Originally, Lu Nonyu intended to leave after a glance, but Song Yiyi grabbed his hand and insisted that he stay a little longer. Seeing that he has time, Lu Nonyu agreed. Song Yiyi was enjoying the meal that Lu Nonyu had prepared, constantly praising his culinary skills. She even added, "It's so fortunate for me, as a younger sister, to enjoy the meals cooked by my older brother Lu every day. I'm so envious." This statement seemed to remind Zhang Chen, who immediately turned his head to look at Lu Nonyu with a grim face. "Where is Zhang Sheng? Isn't she aware that Yi is sick? I really have no idea where her manners have gone. It seems she still can't tolerate Yi just as before." Before Lu Nonyu could respond, Song Yi preemptively replied, "Today is Sheng's birthday. She might be celebrating at home." Upon hearing this, Zhang Chen and Chen Suzhen froze with a hint of embarrassment on their faces. Zhang Chen touched his nose and refrained from arguing that Zhang Sheng's birthday was less important than Song Yi's illness. Instead, it was Lu Nonyu who rose abruptly and curtly said, "I need to leave," then turned and left. For reasons unknown, Lu Nonyu felt a sudden chill run down his spine. Upon hearing Song Yiyi jovially mentioning that today was Zhang Sheng's birthday, at the same time he was seized by an intense sense of panic, as if he was about to lose something. He must see Zhang Sheng right away. Much time had already passed, and I still sat on the cold floor. It was quite late into the night. I glanced at the time, it was 9:30. Lu Nonyu had left home 2 hours ago. Clearly, his promise to return quickly was yet again unfulfilled. I took out my phone and dialed a number that I remembered by heart. 2 seconds later, the call was picked up. "Hello?" On the other end of the call was a lazy, cold woman's voice. Even a mere voice suggested that she was a beauty. "Hello, she." For some reason, my tear ducts, which had been numb, started to function rapidly upon hearing Lu Shi's voice. "What's up? Are you skipping your birthday with Lu Nonyu to call me instead?" Lu Shi. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer, which caused my voice to choke. "Where are you, Zhang Sheng?" The other party's voice instantly tautened, and I could hear the scuffling of hurried movements from her end. "Are they bullying you again? Tell me where you are, I'll come to pick you up." "Home." I broke into a storm of tears, crying out her name, Lu Shi. Hick. It seems Lu Shi was amused by my tone. Yet she reminded me, "Wait for 10 minutes, I'll be there. And don't do anything stupid. Be careful," I sobbed breathlessly. "Got it, just wait there." Lu Shi was my high school desk mate, and the only person in the world who firmly stood by my side. She was a top student, coming from a wealthy family, an unreachable beauty, silent yet fierce. Whereas I was a lousy student, and my family, well, I talk too much and am not good at anything. My friendship with Lu Shi originated from my constant chatter. I knew that every night when I returned home, the joyful noises belonged to Chen Suzhen, Zhang Chen, and Song Yiyi. I didn't fit in and could only stay in the corner, feeling like a shadow untouched by light. So I cherished my time at school. I needed to talk more, laugh more, and be happier, or else I feared I might break down. Looking back, I admired how I was able to manage my emotions. Lu Shi initially didn't pay much attention to me. She always had that indifferent attitude. But everything changed that day when she burst into the last stall of the girls' bathroom, pulling me out from the corner, and gave a slap to every one of those bullies. She protectively kept me behind her and said something cheesy yet cool. "Zhang Sheng, from now on, I have your back. She's pretty, wealthy, academically gifted, teacher's favorite. All, in every aspect, Lu Shi is different from me. She isn't someone that they can bully at will." After the incident, she pulled me back to the classroom and placed a cup of hot water in front of me. "Why did they bully you?" "Haha." I laughed dryly, casually telling her as if it was a joke. "They said that I bullied Song Yi at home, so they wanted to take revenge on her. Could there be anything funnier?" I grinned. Somehow my tears fell while I was laughing. She didn't soothe me, only harshly wiping my face with a piece of paper. Then she dragged me to the office while I was still whimpering. The first move to tackle school bullying, telling the teacher. Our homeroom teacher was a middle-aged woman, very strict, for which the class named her death-defying tyrant. True to her nickname, our homeroom teacher was really domineering. She examined the injuries on my body, which weren't serious. Only a few blue-purple scratches and red marks. She also checked the surveillance. At the entrance of the restroom, indeed, those girls dragged me in. Besides, with Lu Shi's testimony, the teacher called in the girls from Song Yi's class. Their faces were still a bit swollen from Lu Shi's strength. After all, they were the ones that started to bully me. Even if they had swollen like a pig's head, it wouldn't spare them from being critiqued. Song Yi was called in as well, because the gang leader said that Song Yi said I bullied her at home, and they just wanted to teach me a lesson out of sisterhood. Facing the serious faces of the homeroom teacher and other teachers, Song Yi couldn't hold back her tears. Crying and sobbing, she came to me, grabbed my sleeve. "Sister, how could you wrong me like this?" Slap! Her hand was slapped away by Lu Shi. Lu Shi lifted her chin, pointed at the gang. "They said it, if you don't admit it, you can confront them. Maybe they wanted to frame you." Facing the gang's fierce gaze, Song Yi didn't dare to express that she didn't say such things. However, she didn't say a word when the teacher asked her, only continuously wiping her tears. In the end, the teacher called our parents. My mother rushed into the office and held the crying Song Yi, comforting her constantly, apparently not noticing me standing pale-faced at the side. Being led by Lu Shi, "Mom," I called out to her and she turned back, seeming to notice me for the first time, with all the eyes in the office on her. She seemed to realize that she acted somewhat awkwardly and then released Song Yi to look at me. "What's wrong with you again?" I was startled and suddenly felt tired. I didn't want to answer her, so I just turned my head towards the window. "This child," I heard her complaining. "Mrs. Zhang." The teacher told her the whole story. She was stunned when she heard it, staring at Song Yi in disbelief. Song Yi was scared by her gaze and cowered a bit, but she still ran over and clung to her clothing hem. Her voice was pleading and coquettish. "Mom." Chen Suzhen gently patted her hands, seemingly comforting her. The teacher looked a bit embarrassed. She didn't expect that a case of school bullying would turn into a family dispute. Moreover, it seemed like this mother showed more favor to her adopted daughter. But for my sake, our homeroom teacher had to ask the hard question anyways. "Mrs. Zhang, what do you think we should do now? Those little brats that bullied Zhang Sheng." Chen Suzhen fiercely glared at the gang. Seeing their scared looks, she declared from her high position, "Of course you should handle them the way the school should. If you don't teach them a lesson, they'll grow up to become hoodlums." And Song Yi, with a united statement from the girls who bullied me, and Song Yi's attitude. The teacher didn't believe that she didn't say those words. To put it bluntly, the reason I was beaten up this time was highly likely due to Song Yi's instigation, seeing that this mother seemed to favor her adopted daughter more. But for my sake, the homeroom teacher still had to pluck up the courage to question. "Mrs. Chen Suzhen cut off the teacher's question with a wave of her hand. "There's some friction between the two sisters at home. It's normal that Yi feels wronged. Don't worry, teacher, I'll take care of it when we get home." "Mom." My voice was stern, desperately looking at her. What did her words mean? Was she saying that I really bullied Song Yi? "Shut up, Mrs. Chen Suzhen glared at me. Then she turned to Song Yi and said, "Yi Zhang Sheng, apologize to the teacher now and say you've caused her trouble." I never bullied Song Yi. I stared at her, like a little lion whose territory had been violated. "If you got along with Yi, would she feel wronged? Would she say that about you?" "Mrs. Chen Suzhen raised her voice, angrily ordering me, "Come and apologize." I felt weakened all at once. No one could wake a biased adult, just as no one could wake a person pretending to sleep. She knows I didn't do anything, but she still thinks. Even if Song Yi feels wronged, it's still my fault for not doing anything. I suddenly wanted to laugh because I couldn't cry anymore. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Mrs. Chen Suzhen pulled me a few times, but when she saw that she couldn't move me, she gave up but still glared at me with disappointment. Song Yi was obedient, apologizing to the teacher for her disobedience. The teacher pressed her temples, indicating she could leave. But Mrs. Chen Suzhen directly asked for half a day off for her from her class teacher on the grounds That Song Yi was upset about this incident, saying she wanted to take her home to calm her down. The class teacher was somewhat speechless, but considering the parents' request, she signed the leave note anyway. From the beginning to the end, I was standing there like a nobody. It wasn't until Mrs. Chen Suzhen left the office holding her hand that she suddenly let go of my wrist and rushed over. Her expression was still indifferent, but I knew she was angry. Why? Surely she couldn't be indignant for our injustice. Mrs. Chen, she stood in front of the two. If I remember correctly, isn't Xianxia your biological daughter? But it seems that you prefer the one next to you. I don't know what your educational philosophy is. I just want to know, do you think you deserve to be a mother? Caught off guard by this question, Mrs. Chen Suzhen was momentarily stunned, but she always was sharp-tongued, so she laughed sarcastically. And who are you, young lady? I am Zhang Sheng's friend. She said this firmly, making my heart tremble slightly. Oh, is that so? Mrs. Chen Suzhen looked down at Lu Shi. I don't know if I am suited to be a mother, but I know you must be a wild child who hasn't been educated. I am older than you. How did your parents bring you up to speak to me in such a manner? It wasn't until the teacher came out to mediate and pulled the angry Lu Shi away that the mother and daughter went around Lu Shi and left. As she was leaving, Mrs. Chen Suzhen couldn't help but cast an angry look at me. Zhang Sheng, in the future, stay away from these kinds of strange people. Lu Shi took me back to her apartment, and as soon as I entered, I collapsed onto the sofa. Lu Shi took off her coat and hung it in the wardrobe, then asked me without turning her head, Zhang Sheng, you don't have to go home for a few days. I just happen to have a place empty. You can stay there. Or you can just stay with me. As mentioned before, Lu Shi is rich. In addition to the annual dividends from her family business, she owns a whole building in this downtown area. Rich Lady Fanfan, I said weakly, my hand limp over the side of the sofa. With a soft meow, a warm ball of fluff rubbed against my hand. Eh? I sat up and picked up the large ball of fur that was still rubbing against me, shocked by my actions. Hai Shuang, a nearly 20-pound ragdoll, let out another meow as if in protest. I leaned in and kissed its soft pink nose. You've grown so big. You're still a little man. But you meow so delicately. Are you trying to seduce your mom? Hee hee. I buried my face in its chest, taking in deep breaths. Shyly, it pushed my head away with its fluffy paws. But its spurs told me it didn't mind. She placed a bowl of mini wontons in front of me, her voice aloof. That's no longer the case. What? He's neutered. She mimicked a knife action with her hand. Ha 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 ha. Unable to resist, I laughed out loud, playfully feeling Hai Shuang's little tummy. No wonder you've gained weight so quickly. Hai Shuang stopped purring, glaring at us with human-like discontent, then scampered off to play with a ball. The sight had us laughing even harder. Even she was amused by Hai Shuang's pudgy yet nimble demeanor. I took a sip of the wonton soup, letting out a content sigh. A warm feeling slowly spread into my stomach. Your cooking is impressive. I leaned into her, aiming to please my host for the next few days. She pushed my forehead lightly with her finger, scolding me while unable to hide her smile. They're frozen, you know. If you like them, there's more in the fridge. As long as it's served by you, I'll love to eat it. After finishing my wonton, I wanted to wash the dishes but was stopped by Lu Shi. Seeing her serious expression, I sat straight and attentive, reminiscent of my school days. Spill it, what's wrong? Firstly, I raised a finger. Lu Nanyu was called away by Song Yi again. It's my birthday, isn't that too much? My face twisted in anger, but she was surprisingly calm. That's not it. Her voice was colder, yet calmer. Tell me the truth, Zhang Sheng. What's going on with you? I stifled a laugh. What should I do? I'm afraid of making her sad. But she would definitely get mad if I didn't say anything. She has a big temper. I'm afraid she wouldn't go to my grave to burn paper in the future. What if I miss her? More importantly, what if there's no low-income protection in the afterlife? I originally didn't like celebrating birthdays, because Song Yi's birthday is close to mine. Every year, Chen Suzhen would arrange for us to celebrate together, which I found tiresome. Song Yi is a year older than me. In previous years, Chen Suzhen would first put her candles on the birthday cake and let her make a wish. After that, the candles would be replaced with mine. Seeing those little holes on the cream cake like scars, I felt resentful and didn't want to celebrate my birthday. Chen Suzhen always said that I looked stiff and gloomy, even when celebrating my birthday. Until one year, Song Yiyi cut the cake right after making her wish. Her eyes red, she apologized to me. I said nothing, just silently watched the half-cut birthday cake, quietly feeling the emotions of slowly having everything that belonged to me taken away. My birthday cake was no longer flawless, and eventually it wasn't mine anymore. Seeing me silent, Song Yiyi cried even louder. Chen Suzhen held her reassuringly. Yiyi, it's okay, it's just a cake. Zhang Chen chimed in too. Exactly, Sheng won't blame you. He gave me a look, hinting me to add something. I didn't oblige him. I just kept staring coldly at Chen Suzhen and Song Yiyi huddled together, apparently frightened by my gaze. Song Yiyi started to retreat into Chen Suzhen and sobbed gingerly. Mom, is Sis angry? No, she's not. She's not mad. Zhang Sheng, only then did she raise her head and look at me. Apparently, my look shocked her too. Her voice suddenly became sharp. Zhang Sheng, what are you staring at Yiyi for? I'm watching you too. I didn't say it out loud, just didn't think it was necessary. So I hid my emotions, became calm to the point of numbness again. Eat, happy birthday. This year's wish for the whole family to be safe and healthy here was cut off. Just like I didn't have a birthday afterwards. After I left, Zhang Chen chased after me, gripping my wrists in frustration. Zhang Sheng, do you think this is funny? Trying to make everyone unhappy? Yiyi didn't mean it. Why are you looking at her like that? You're in high school now. Haven't you learned to be generous? You see, Zhang Sheng, Yiyi, you can tell who favors who at once. I see, I responded lightly. He wasn't expecting such an easy response from me. His admonishing words were choked back down, his face turned red. He walked beside me, trying to coax me. Your mom told me about you and Yi's situation at school. Yiyi was wrong. Mom also scolded her. But Zhang Sheng, you can't hold a grudge against her for this. She's pitiful. She lost both her parents, and her health is not that great. You should give her some slack. Oh, I still showed no reactions. He thought I've been moved by his words. A smile finally appeared on his face, reaching out awkwardly to ruffle my hair. I'll have my birthday soon too. Will you celebrate it with me? You get to insert the candles first. Make a wish, okay? Okay, my replies remained brief. Zhang Chen thought he had successfully persuaded me, and he happily returned to cut the cake with them. I went downstairs, began to roam around the neighborhood aimlessly. Roaming took me to the school. I suddenly realized that apart from home and school, I had nowhere to go. I walked into the classroom, sitting in my chair, letting the darkness slowly devour me bit by bit. When I finally woke up, I found a faint red liquid seeping out in the dark corner. A sharp pain spread from my wrist. I tried to stand up in fear, but my head became heavier and heavier, until I heard the sound of a box cutter falling on the ground. Then came a terrified shout. Zhang Sheng, wake up. I woke up in the hospital. A doctor came and asked me a few questions, scribbling something on a notebook. After he left, it took a while for Lu Shi with teary eyes to come in. She said, Zhang Sheng, you're ill. I laughed and shook my head, telling her I was quite healthy for minor illness like cold. I could handle it in a few days. But she told me I had depression. I didn't know what to say anymore. Crying, she hugged me, asking me what would I have done if she didn't forget her books at home today. I said no big deal, and asked her not to tell my mom. But Chen Suzhen found out anyway. I was still a minor. How could the doctor not inform my parents? She mumbled complaints about why I was so mentally weak, yet completely ignored the fact that after I was sent home by Lu Shi that day, she taunted me about how late I was coming home, accusing me of hanging around with dubious folks. I didn't say a word, just eating everything on the table. Lu Shi and the doctor both told me to eat well, but Chen Suzhen, she never apologized. After that, they indeed didn't treat me as an invisible person anymore. However, they began to tiptoe around me, their words and actions guarding my feelings. But I could never forget how the sounds of laughter I had heard outside the door had completely frozen the moment I stepped in. And as soon as my expression changed slightly, Song Yiyi would start crying. She would timidly grab onto Chen Suzhen or Zhang Chen's arm, cautiously asking them if she had done something wrong again to upset me. At these times, Chen Suzhen and Zhang Chen would look at me with frustrated eyes before consoling Song Yiyi. Eventually, Zhang Chen could no longer hold it in and exploded when Song Yiyi started crying again. He looked at me with a frown and asked impatiently, "Zhang Sheng, can you be less dramatic? We have to take care of your emotions every day, and we're really tired. As soon as you appear, we don't even dare to talk. Please, can you stop pushing us? And can't you just stop picking on Yiyi just because you're sick? She's your sister." I looked at him in shock, and then he quickly regretted his words and apologized to me. And I just asked him, how did I bully Song Yiyi? Why did everyone think I bullied her? Zhang Chen weakly defended. Yiyi is relatively sensitive, her parents. Can you just let her be? If there's any problem, come to me and Mom, okay? I sneered. If my parents and brother were dead, that'd be nice. Then I would be an orphan too, and it would be time for people to let me be. Zhang Chen looked at me in shock. Zhang Shengyu, you're cursing me and Mom. When did you become like this? I said, stay away from me, Zhang Chen. I feel nauseous. Zhang Chen walked away with a gloomy face, taking Song Yiyi with him. Song Yiyi glanced back at me with a smile that I didn't quite get when he wasn't looking, but I pretended I didn't see it, not even lifting an eyelid. However, these were minor problems compared to the main issue. The breaking point in my relationship with Zhang Chen occurred on his birthday. That day, he inserted candles that represented my age into his birthday cake and said to Chen Suzhen and Song Yiyi, "Last time Zhang Sheng didn't get to celebrate her birthday, so let her celebrate with me this time. She can make a wish." Chen Suzhen nodded, but Song Yiyi seemed unhappy and her usual smile was gone, replaced by a resentful expression as she looked at me. I made my wish with eyes closed. I hope Lu Zitian will be happy every day and have a smooth and peaceful life. I still had the problem of depending on others. Only that person changed from my family to Lu Zitian. At that time, I, who was left with nothing, could only hope that she wouldn't abandon me like Chen Suzhen and Zhang Chen did. Later on, it was proved that she did not disappoint me. After making my wish, I cut the cake directly, ignoring Zhang Chen's intention to put in 2 more candles. "Zhang Sheng, what are you doing?" Song Yiyi stood up. She seemed startled, but then she started accusing me. "Brother is kind enough to let you celebrate your birthday with him. How could you do this?" My apology was insincere, sorry. I looked at Zhang Chen with malice and cunning. "Brother, you won't blame me, will you?" with my question. The harmony cultivated painstakingly by everyone over the past few months shattered in that moment, and I finally realized that I was really sick. Zhang Chen's chest heaved. He could not be blind to the similarities. I was doing this out of revenge. "Zhang Sheng," he yelled my name in anger. It's not that he's angry because I ruined his birthday cake. What infuriated him was the unconcealed provocation in my face and eyes. "What's the matter?" My hands opened slightly. "Zhang Chen, do you find this interesting? Must you fight until everyone is upset? You're already in your senior year. Aren't you capable of being magnanimous?" I returned his words to him verbatim. "Get out of here." This time it was Chen Suzhen. I looked at her calmly, but noticed the tears welling in her eyes. Why was she crying? I wondered. She trembled, pointing a finger at my nose. "It's you. You won't let us live in peace. Do you think you can manipulate us because you're sick? I'm telling you, dream on. You are really sick. You're really sick, Zhang Sheng. How could I have given birth to you?" She accused me sentence by sentence, but I didn't feel anything. But she was right about one thing. I was truly sick, and if she hadn't given birth to me, I wouldn't mind. I'd rather never have come into this world. I decided to listen to her suggestion and scram. So I overturned the cake on the table, turned around, and left, just like I did 2 months ago. "You guys can have this, happy birthday." This time, no one chased after me. I slammed the door, cutting off Mrs. Chen Suzhen's sharp cries. The world quieted down again. "Hey, you promised, no crying or cursing me after you read this." I handed her the crumpled corner of the diagnosis certificate and took the opportunity to grab my bowl and run into the kitchen while she was distracted. I didn't turn on the light. Using the light from the living room, I turned the faucet on fully. The sound of the water was enough to cover all surrounding noises. I hummed a song while washing the dishes. Seeing Lu, she covered her face in pain out of the corner of my eye. My vision blurred. A warm liquid gushed from my nose. I wanted to wipe it, but my hand slipped, and the dish fell from my hand, shattering. What a pity, this was my personal tableware. What's wrong? Lu, she rushed over and opened the kitchen door. I rushed out, quickly ran into the bathroom, cleaned my face, and cleaned up the nosebleed on my body. When I came out with 2 balls of toilet paper stuffed in my nose, I was stopped by Lu Shi. Her eyes were frighteningly red, and her voice was unintentionally lowered. Xianxia, what happened to you? How could you get sick like this? 2 lines of clear tears fell from her eyes. I raised my hand to wipe her tears with my thumb and said softly, I'm sorry, I don't know either. Xianxia, who used to play ball all the time, started following me and Lu Shi, calling mournfully. Xianxia was not originally called Xianxia, it was an expensive pet I bought from the pet store. And its name was Peanut, my beloved son. It was noble looking and clingy. At that time, 8 out of 10 posts on my moments were photos of us. I was very greedy for its company. Whenever I returned home from work, this white fluff ball would roll into my arms, purr, show its belly to me. Those were some of the rare happy moments in my life. At that time, I was not living with Lu Nanyu yet. One day, the company unexpectedly had to work overtime. I called him and asked him to help feed the cat. When I returned home, I saw him sitting with Song Yi on the bench under my apartment, Song Yi's head gently resting on his shoulder. They were talking and laughing happily. I noticed the pink leash in Song Yi's hand, which I usually used to walk Peanut, but I didn't remember asking Lu Nanyu to walk the cat. Sure enough, I looked closer and saw that the other end of the leash was empty. There was no cat. Song Yi saw me and quickly moved her head from Lu Nanyu's shoulder. Sister, you misunderstand, we're not like what you think. She was anxious, but I didn't look at her. I just asked Lu Nanyu, where is Peanut? Isn't it right there? All 3 of us looked at the pink color on the ground, but there was nothing there. There was no cat. Double quotes it ... it was just here. Lu Nanyu was also anxious, somewhat incoherent. How important Peanut was to me, he knew it. I'm sorry, Xianxia, Song Yi said with remorse. Wringing the corner of her cloth, I'm sorry, I came to feed the cat with Lu brother. I saw it looked listless, so I thought to take it for a walk. I didn't consider. But I could no longer hear what she was saying. My ears suddenly erupted with a loud roar. Like a madman, I darted into the nearby bushes, letting the branches scratch and cut my body. I cleared away branches and leaves with my hands and feet, mechanically shouting its name. Peanut, Peanut, where are you? Mom is here. Come out quickly. Lu Nanyu tried to pull me out, but I pushed him away. His hand was cut by a branch, blood flowing out instantly. Song Yi seemed to be frightened, and she let out a short, terrified scream. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Lu Nanyu was sitting by the bed with his eyes closed. His bandaged hand was holding mine tightly. I coldly shook him off. He was startled awake and looked at me. His expression of surprise was no different from that of Peanut when I got home from work. But all I could feel was resentment. Xianxia, you woke up. My eyes were filled with ice. Where is Peanut? He immediately lowered his head guiltily. I'm sorry, Xianxia, I couldn't find it. Why did you bring Song Yi to my house? Why did you let her take Peanut for a walk? Why couldn't you 2 adults take care of a cat? Huh? I sneered. Also, you were busy with your love affair. How could you care about Peanut's life or death? Lu Nanyu, isn't it exciting to be with your girlfriend's sister? It is not. It's not like that. It was her. She asked me to take her home. He shook his head in pain, looking sad and guilty. I saw in the mirror by the bed that my face, neck, and arms were full of tiny wounds, some of them even covered with gauze. Lu Nanyu came to pull me, Xianxia. Where are you going? The doctor said you can't leave yet. Get out, I coldly avoided his hand, put on my coat, and stared at him fiercely. If Peanut can't be found, I'll make you and Song Yi pay with your lives." In the end, Peanut was found. It was hiding in a corner of the 15th floor. A little girl found it and posted it in the homeowners group. My house is on the 18th floor. It's hard to imagine how hard it must have tried to break free from the leash, and then crawled up to the 15th floor. When Peanut saw me, it retreated cautiously, allowing me to pick it up and sniff me vigorously. It then meowed a few times dissatisfiedly, as if it was blaming me for taking so long to come back, then lay down in my arms and started purring. After this incident, I broke up with Lunanyu. He disagreed and even called Chen Suzhen and Zheng Chen, asking them to persuade me, but their calls weren't just for Lunanyu. After finding Peanut, I went to Song Yi's company and slapped her in front of all the employees. Zheng Chen called me with a voice of annoyance and disgust. "Zheng Sheng, you're going too far, aren't you? You slapped Yi for a beast. She's your sister. Now you also want to break up with Nanyu? You've really done enough." I scoffed. "Sorry, I don't have a sister. If you acknowledge Song Yi as your sister, your treasure, your wife, your mom, I have no problem. Don't fucking involve me." I hung up and blocked the number. Chen Suzhen was different. She came directly to my house and slapped me twice. "Zheng Sheng, you dare to hit Yi?" "I did. What's it to you?" I said indifferently. "You're crazy. You're really crazy." Chen Suzhen trembled and pointed at me. "You look crazy. If Lu isn't disgusted by you, you should be grateful. And now you want to break up with him? I'm telling you, Zheng Sheng, after I die, none of the property will go to you. You'll fend for yourself." She stood in front of the balcony window, bossing me around. "If you insist on breaking up with Lu, I'll jump from here." "Okay," I laughed. I was driven to laughter. Indeed, my family members were all lousy. By the way, she walked away from the dangerous spot but didn't know when to stop. "Where's your cat?" "Yi likes it." "You're crazy. How can you raise a cat? Why don't you just give it to Yi? Yi will take good care of her." I took the fruit knife from the coffee table and threw it in front of her, meaning either die or scram. Chen Suzhen was frightened by my gaze. She cursed a few times and then left. After she left, I took Peanut to find Lu Shi, wanting to entrust Peanut to her. Lu Shi thought I was entrusting an orphan to her, and she refused to agree whatsoever. I could only laugh and explain to her that I was afraid Song Yi would sneak into my house and steal Peanut one day. She finally agreed to let Peanut stay at her house for a while. I even changed Peanut's name to Sheng Sheng. Lu Shi panicked even more. She carefully asked me, "Zhang Sheng Sheng, you won't do anything stupid, will you?" I replied to her, "Isn't it just like I'm always by your side? Isn't that good?" Lu Shi didn't say anything with her lips, but I still shamelessly left Sheng Sheng at her house. Then on the way home, I picked up a dead stray cat from the side of the road, stuffed it in a preservation box, and had it delivered to Song Yi's house. I don't know what she looked like when she saw it. Anyway, Chen Suzhen cursed me pretty filthy when she called me. It wasn't until 2 days later that Lu Shi accepted the fact that I was about to die, although she tried to knock me out and get me to the hospital. But I said to her with teary eyes, I want to die beautifully, can I?" She gave in. Besides, late-stage pancreatic cancer wouldn't make much difference no matter how much you treat it. It's better to let me live out my last days happily. So on the 3rd day, she dragged me out of bed and stuffed me in the car. "What's going on?" I was puzzled. "We're going on a road trip. How about that? Didn't you always want to go see the grasslands?" "Great." I was clapping my hands and the atmosphere became lively. If I hadn't suddenly had a nosebleed. Lu Shi's hometown is in Inner Mongolia, where they have hundreds of thousands of cows and sheep. I have always wanted to see the vast grasslands and taste the local beef and mutton. During this time, Lunanyu sent me a lot of messages, made a lot of calls, but I didn't reply, and eventually blocked him, until he asked me, at the end of the month, "We are going to take wedding photos, Sheng Sheng, I'll wait for you." Under this message, I replied with a good. At the same time, I told Lu Shi that I had to go back by the end of the month. She pouted. "You're not planning to break up with him?" "Break up?" I nodded. "Why not? This time I want to cut it off completely with him." "Well, you still have hope." She pushed my forehead with her finger. All right, you hurry up. I'm going to eat the hand-grabbed lamb you made." I pushed Lucy out, and as she left, she gathered her robe and reminded me, "You hurry up, okay?" Having stayed on the grasslands for half a month, her skin had a healthy glow now, and she seemed a bit more heroic compared to her previous coldness. I know, you are so naggy." I quickly shut the curtain of the Mongolian yurt, and as I turned around, blood uncontrollably streamed from the corner of my mouth. I ran to the sink and turned on the tap, vomiting a large amount of blood. I awkwardly wiped the physiological tears from the corner of my eyes, and felt a bit relieved at the same time. Thank goodness I'm not at my ugliest yet. Meow from the tent's curtain, a fluffy little cat head peeked out. Xianxia stood there looking at me, seemingly unsure whether to go in or out, just kept meowing worriedly. I cleaned myself up and then held her in my arms. Our foreheads touching, I pinched her paw pads, as if making a pinky promise. "Xianxia, we are not telling Godmother." Meow? Who is the well-behaved and cute kitty? Meow. September 23rd. Lucy and I embarked on the journey home. I rolled down the car window, bidding farewell to the vast grasslands. Lucy pursed her lips in distaste. "Zhang Xianxia, you're acting like a dog who excitedly sticks its head out of the car window." I didn't respond to her. The wind blew through my hair, leaving me unsure whether to feel relieved that I still have hair or to feel regret that I probably will never feel this wind again. I turned back to look at Lucy, who had her lips pressed tightly together. Between relief and regret, I decided to tease her. "I am indeed your dog. I meant you're an ass," I said. "Fine, I'll leave, okay?" Lucy grabbed my sleeve, preventing me from pretending to jump out of the car, and she coaxed, "All right, if you like it here. After you divorce Lunanyu, we can come back." "Sure." I nodded, full aware that this farewell might be the final one. I wouldn't have a chance to come again, but I want to make the last effort. "After I die, could you scatter my ashes here?" "Shut up, I'm driving." "Hey, if I'm afraid your mom and your brother would kill me." "Don't worry, they won't have a chance to blame her. I couldn't choose to enter this family when I was born. But after death, I will tell the wind not to blow my ashes to them. I dislike their negativity." September 26th. I went out alone to handle some matters. September 28th. I stole Lucy's sleeping pills and secretly dissolved them in her milk, with the excuse that the cow was upset. I watched her drink it and then sneak under her quilt. She has a great figure. Hee. I am seriously considering becoming her dog in the next life. September 29th. I woke up early, dragged the sleep-blurred Xianxia out of the cat's bed and thoroughly cuddled her from head to tail. Xianxia, half sleeping, snored loudly, her little paws needing milk in her sleep. It wasn't until I let her go that she reluctantly opened her eyes and moaned softly. I put on my coat, turned back and waved at her. Goodbye. I arrived early at the wedding photo studio, only to discover Lunanyu got here even earlier. Seeing me get off the car, he was filled with surprise and darted over. As I avoided his hand, he gripped my coat, almost pleadingly. "Xianxia, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have left you to go to the hospital. I won't do it again, you know. I only love you. I won't let anyone else ruin our happiness. I'm going to delete Song Yiyi's number and block her." He was almost moved by his own words, but I remained unmoved. "Did you tell Song Yiyi that we are going to take wedding photos today?" I didn't. He almost swore to the heavens. "That's all right, I did." Xianxia. His eyes were reddening, as though he wanted to say something else. However, someone from the wedding company came over. "Do you two want to start with makeup? The photographer will be here soon." Lunanyu immediately pulled himself together, straightening out his suit. "Xianxia, stop messing around. Shall we go to makeup first?" He maintained a gentle demeanor, yet I shook my head. "I don't want makeup. Can I have a natural look for the photo shooting? Because it wasn't necessary anyway." The staff was somewhat hesitant. He had never seen a bride who didn't want to look glamorous for her wedding photos, instead insisting on going without makeup. He turned his gaze to Lunanyu. Of course, Lunanyu expressed whatever I wanted was fine. He would accompany me. Seeing this, the staff did not say anything more. Soon, the photographer arrived, and I changed into my wedding dress to start the photo shoot. However, Lu Nanyu seemed somewhat distracted, repeatedly glancing at his phone with a furrowed brow. When he caught my questioning gaze, he would try to discreetly shake his head and laugh it off, but he quickly stopped laughing. The bride and groom move a little closer. Yeah, perfect, hold it there. But before the photographer could push down the trigger, Lu Nanyu let go of my shoulder. His handsome face was dark and frightening, grippingly fixed on the mall opposite the park. A considerable crowd had already gathered below the mall. On top of the mall's roof, one could see a shadowy figure standing at the edge, seeming ready to jump. A staff member ran over, handing me the constantly vibrating phone. I answered, Chen Suzhen's loud voice coming through the receiver. Zhang Sheng, hurry over here. It's at the mall across from where the two of you are taking wedding photos. Yi Yi wants to jump. Hurry over with little Lu. Yi Yi wants to see him. She said that if anything happens to her, she won't spare you. Would she jump? Would she dare? My voice seemed stricken with ice. Zhang Sheng, what kind of cold-hearted statements are you making? Chen Suzhen's voice became sharper, Zhang Chen seizing the phone from her. If little Lu doesn't come, Yi Yi said she'll jump. Zhang Sheng, don't be stubborn. I know you're not that cruel. Bring little Lu over here. Yi Yi won't try to steal your boyfriend. And what is she doing right now then? Zhang Sheng, if something happens to Yi Yi, I'll follow her and jump too. Then you'll be the one guilty of causing your mother's death. You'll be drowned in a sea of contempt. Chen Suzhen snatched the phone back. Why are you so good to Song Yi Yi? Is it because she's your first loves and your aunt's daughter? Mom, you're really kind. I truly praised her. On the other end of the line, they hung up in frustration. I looked up and Lu Nanyu was staring at me. Sheng Sheng. He rubbed his hands together as if studying my reaction. Go ahead, my voice was very soft. He started running forward but then turned around, coming back as if he'd forgotten something, and grabbed my hand. I avoided it, then calmly followed behind him. Below the mall, firefighters were inflating air cushions, looking up at the height of 10 floors. These things probably had no use at this point. We were let in. On the rooftop, Song Yi Yi was sitting outside the guardrail, crying bitterly. Chen Suzhen and Zhang Chen stood 2 meters away. The two factions separated like the characters in a drama. Seeing this had some dramatic effect. Upon seeing me come up, Chen Suzhen rushed up and slapped me on the face. I tried to block her, but my body was already hollowed out by the pain, so she easily knocked me to the ground with a single slap. Lu Nanyu rushed over to help me up right away. Chen Suzhen didn't seem to expect that I would fall so easily. Her expression for a moment was as if struck dumb. Lu Nanyu shielded me behind him. Auntie, if you've got a problem, take it up with me. Don't hurt Sheng Sheng. Chen Suzhen was taken aback by his shout, retreating a step. Lu Ji. Nanyu, Song Yi Yi called out Lu Nanyu's name in a mournful voice, her sad eyes full of complicated feelings. Her gaze swept over me and Lu Nanyu. And then, knowing the answer, she asked, Nanyu, little sister, are you two getting married? Of course, I smirked, or else you wouldn't have resorted to this move. Cracks started to appear in Song Yi Yi's expression. I keenly noticed her moment of frustration, and then smirked with a good feeling. Sheng Sheng, that's enough. Lu Nanyu glanced at me warningly, then lowered his voice. Sheng Sheng, don't provoke her. Yi Yi, you asked me to come here, I'm here. So tell me what you exactly want. Lu Nanyu attempted to negotiate with Song Yi Yi. I want you to cancel the engagement. Song Yi Yi did not beat around the bush. And then marry you, is that it? I raised an eyebrow. You're right, Song Yi Yi didn't even put on a pretense, her eyes directly locking on to Lu Nanyu. That's impossible. Unexpectedly, Lu Nanyu decisively refused. Zhao Lu. Chen Suzhen reached for Lu Nanyu's sleeve as if crawling down. Please, I beg you, just agree with her. For me. She didn't look at me as she spoke. Sheng Sheng. Zhang Chen placed his hand on my shoulder, as if trying to persuade me to talk to Lu Nanyu. Yi Yi's life is the most important. I disgustingly avoided his touch, successfully earning a hurt look from Zhang Chen. Seeing this, Song Yi Yi laughed. It was as if she had heard a funny joke and laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, she wiped away the tears caused by her laughter, her gaze mocking towards Lu Nanyu. Lunan, you didn't really fall for her, did you? Didn't we agree? Just get her to fall for you, then dump her, right? Didn't I promise to be with you afterwards? Have you forgotten all about that? I looked at Lunan Yu, his face as pale as paper. Shifting my gaze, I had no interest in hearing his defense. Suddenly, Song Yi seemed interested. She released one hand from the railing. Yi, in the eyes of everyone filled with either horror or worry, she beckoned me with her finger. Only Zhang Shen can come. Chen Suzhen nudged me from behind. I was astounded by her. Hadn't she heard Song Yi's words? Sheng, go and talk around. Her guts failed in looking at me. A person's life is the most important thing. All right. I headed towards Song Yi, my name being called out by Lunan Yu and Zhang Chen. Yet not a single one of them tried to stop me. Song Yi pondered, as if considering something amusing. Oh, the wind on the roof is too strong. Sheng, you must be uncomfortable in your wedding dress. How about you take it off? I looked back at everyone else. They were all avoiding my gaze. Okay, I began to unzip. The white wedding dress seemed to peel off my body like feathers from an angel's wings, bit by bit. I was wearing a pair of denim shorts underneath the dress, and only pasties on top, a near wardrobe malfunction. This made Song Yi even happier. Warmth pressed against my back as Lunan Yu draped his suit on me. I gave him a small smile, then did up the buttons. Neither he, Chen Suzhen, nor Zhang Chen could bear to look at me. Song Yi reluctantly clicked her tongue but didn't object. I walked closer and closer to her. Okay, you can stop now, Song Yi said, but I ignored her as I climbed over the barricade, standing at a height comparable to hers. Sheng, Lunan Yu panicked. Zhang Sheng, Chen Suzhen and Zhang Chen called my name out in horror. The expression on Chen Suzhen's face was different from before. She collapsed to the ground, staring blankly at me, as if in a trance. After a while, tears started streaming down her cheeks. Sheng, come over here, don't scare me. Don't scare your mother. Zhang Sheng, come down right away. Zhang Chen's eyes were bloodshot as he paced anxiously on the spot, looking like an ant on a hot pot. Sheng, Lunan Yu called my name, come down. We'll get married right away, okay? I won't care about her anymore. Stop scaring me. I smirked scornfully. Who wants to marry you, you brat? Cough. Suddenly, an itch came from my throat. I brought my hand up instinctively to cover it, only to find it stained with sticky red blood. Sheng, what's wrong with you? All three of them looked at me in shock. I carelessly wiped the blood on my hand onto the white suit, baring my blood-stained teeth in a grin at them. Pancreatic cancer. My 25th birthday gift. What do you think? Surprised? Lunan Yu slumped to his knees in shock, as if he were remembering something. He covered his ears and let out a piercing scream from his throat. Chen Suzhen and Zhang Chen were also in disbelief. They reached out to me, repeatedly persuading me to come back, saying no matter what was going on, we could solve it as a family. What a joke. What family do I have left? I made a gun sign with my blood-stained right hand. The gun aimed at Chen Suzhen, Zhang Chen, and Lunan Yu in turn. Goodbye, I smiled brilliantly, to my disgusting family and ex-boyfriend. I let go of my other hand, spread my arms wide, gave a forceful kick with my legs, and embraced the wind's cradle like a butterfly with broken wings. With the howling wind in my ears, I could hear them desperately calling out my name. Lunan Yu managed to pull back Song Yi, who was so frightened she almost let go. But his other hand was void, failing to touch even a strand of my hair. I smiled, not caring if my fall from the building would hurt or not. I just wished for a swift death. Then I closed my eyes and completely lost consciousness. Extra. She opened her eyes to the sound of Sheng snoring in the living room. She reached out and touched the quilt on the bed next to her. It had gone cold. The sound of the door closing resonated. She heard the deliberately hushed goodbye, trembling slightly at the end. She sniffled and pulled the blanket over her head. Who would believe that milk bubbles because cows are angry? Damn it! The sense of suffocation increased, and the silky quilt was now soaked with tears. She wiped her face, got out of bed, and picked up Sheng, who was meowing restlessly at the entrance. The plum-pragdal cat struggled to continue scratching at the door, but mysteriously quieted down when it saw the weak and sad look in Lu Shi's eyes, letting its surrogate mother bury her teary face in its thick, fluffy neck. Lu Shi, holding the calming Xianxia, sat on the bed quietly. Apart from her slightly moving chest, she seemed to be a soulless statue. After an unknown amount of time, her phone rang. "Hello, is this Miss Lu Shi? I'm Zhang Sheng's lawyer. According to Miss Jiang's will, her body is entrusted to you. Can you come over? The location is the morgue of a certain hospital." "Okay, I understand." Lu Shi's voice was calm, but a hint of hoarseness could be heard deep in her throat. She put Xianxia down and patted the kitten's head. "I'm going to see your mom. You stay good at home." Meow. Xianxia's call was low. Lu Shi knew it wasn't satisfied with the arrangement. After a moment of thought, she picked up Xianxia and left the house. The outside corridor of the morgue was extremely chaotic. Lawyer Zhang, with a file bag, was protected by a group of bodyguards. Chen Suzhen was scratching and grabbing at a bodyguard, while Zhang Chen held onto her waist, trying to prevent his mother from causing a commotion at the entrance of the morgue. Song Yiyi sat on a chair in the hospital corridor, lost in thought, her body trembling slightly at the thought of Zhang Sheng dying in front of her. Lu Nanyu stood on the side, head bowed, keeping his fingers busy in silence. To think he almost caught her. Lawyer Zhang adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on his nose, as the words that came out of his mouth felt as cold as a severe winter wind. "Miss Chen, Mr. Zhang, I believe you have already read and confirmed the terms of her will. You have no right to approach Miss Jiang's body, let alone deal with her remains. You're talking nonsense." Chen Suzhen was disheveled, emanating an aura of desperation. Her daughter just died in front of her, and before she could even react, she was being told by a man claiming to be Zhang Sheng's lawyer that she had no right to handle her daughter's body. Chen Suzhen was unable to accept this. "It's impossible. She is my daughter. Why would she make such a will? It must be you who is lying to me. It must be. Give my daughter back." Sob. "Give her back." Chen Suzhen choked out a sob, completely collapsing on the floor. Zhang Sheng was her only daughter, her life. She didn't know when Zhang Sheng started to become more and more gloomy. That's why she couldn't help but be attracted to Song Yiyi, who was tragic yet optimistic and kind. Chen Suzhen couldn't understand why Zhang Sheng would choose to jump off the building. She knew Zhang Sheng had depression, but she always thought that Zhang Sheng was just a bit moody. But suicide? Is there anything that can't be discussed properly? Why did she have to die? It felt like her heart was being fried in oil. She might have shown favoritism towards Song Yiyi, but that was because she owed Song Yiyi, owed their family. But Zhang Sheng? She was her own flesh and blood. Chen Suzhen felt as though her heart had jumped off the 10th floor along with Zhang Sheng, fracturing into pieces on impact, hence the unbearable pain. Zhang Chen was still trying to communicate with the lawyer, attempting to keep his emotions in check. "Lawyer Zhang, I think there may be a misunderstanding. We are Sheng Sheng's family. I'm her brother. How could she not allow us to touch her corpse? How is this possible?" Lawyer Zhang looked at him, shook his head, seemingly wanting to say something. But after a long silence, he just said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang." Bang! Zhang Chen punched the wall in the corridor, staining the white wall with a trace of fresh blood. "It's precisely because you are her family that you have absolutely no right to touch her." Following the high-heeled clip-clop sound, Lu Shi's icy voice resounded inside everyone's heads. Lawyer Zhang was relieved. "Miss Lu, you're here, please come over." "Lu Shi? Why is it you?" Zhang Chen squinted his eyes in confusion. "Lu Shi," snorted in response without saying a word. Lawyer Zhang took out Zhang Sheng's will. "Miss Lu, she is the sole inheritor of our client's entire estate, including her body after her death. All matters are to be handled by Miss Lu." Lu Shi clapped her hands, and 2 workers from the funeral home walked into the morgue to remove Zhang Sheng's body. No. Chen Suzhen staggered and knelt in front of Lu Shi, clutching her skirt anxiously. "Where are you taking Xianxia? Where are you taking my daughter? Please, Lu, I know you're a good girl. We can give you whatever inheritance. Just don't take my daughter away. Please." Song Yiyi, who didn't know when she had rushed over, seized the corner of Lu Shi's clothes. The Xianxia in her arms hissed at the two women, rapidly opening and closing his mouth. You could only imagine how filthy his language was. Miss Lu, please agree with my mom. Don't take away Xianxia Wei. Before she could finish her sentence, Chen Suzhen forcefully pushed her to the side. Don't call me mom. Chen Suzhen's voice was sharp. It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, Xianxia wouldn't have jumped. Why didn't you die? Song Yiyi got up from the ground, looking hatefully at Chen Suzhen's back. Lu Shi took all this in, snickering in her heart. You can safely assume that if it was Song Yiyi who died today instead of Zhang Sheng would be treated the same way by Chen Suzhen. No, maybe Chen Suzhen would have behaved even worse. And Chen, if I remember correctly, Xianxia was driven to death by you. Didn't you say that if something happened to Song Yiyi, you wouldn't let it go? Now you've gotten what you wished for. Congratulations. On the way here, the lawyer told her everything about Zhang Sheng's suicide. Lu Shi was so heartbroken that she wished she could kick all these people off the 10th floor. They even had the nerve to beg her now. Lu Shi's face was growing more scornful. If it weren't for the fact that Chen Suzhen was older, she really wanted to slap her hard enough to wake her up. Lu Shi turned to leave, but her way was blocked by Zhang Chen and Lu Nanyu, who stood like door gods on her left and right. Lu Shi's rage was just about to explode from her head. Little Shi, Lu Nanyu gazed at her pleadingly. You were Sheng's best friend. You must know what she was going through. Out of the blue, why would she commit suicide? Out of the blue. Lu Shi adjusted the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and couldn't help but laugh. You know that Zhang Sheng has depression, right? I know, his voice stuttered in response. But she's always been. You were going to say that nothing was wrong with her, right? Lu Shi interrupted him. So when Song Yiyi cries and throws a tantrum, even threatens suicide, you feel so sorry for her and the world should revolve around her, right? As for Zhang Sheng, she's always been fine and wasn't desiring death, right? So that's why you left her behind on her birthday to find Song Yiyi. So that's why you stand with Song Yiyi as you unabashedly oppress Zhang Sheng, right? Lu Nanyu said, guiltily lowering his head. But Yiyi was indeed in a bad state at that time. Zhang Chen was still trying to justify himself. Crack! Zhang Chen's head was slapped to one side, and Lu Shi's nails left a striking bloodstain on his pale face. Oh, you knew she had depression. What about cancer? Lu Shi asked. Pancreatic cancer. Lu Shi emphasized word by word. She was dying. When Song Yiyi was making a scene to get your attention, Zhang Sheng, she was about to die. Everyone fell silent, turning their heads one by one under the piercing gaze of Lu Shi. She just wanted to die less painfully. Leave her alone. Lu Shi's voice became very soft again, but it felt incredibly heavy in the ears of the three. Chen Suzhen murmured Zhang Sheng's name and seemed to be stimulated, rolling her eyes and fainting on the spot. As Lu Shi was about to leave, she seemed to remember something, turned back and slapped Lu Nanyu in the face. By the way, I forgot about you. Lu Nanyu seemed to have forgotten to breathe, and aside from his face being slapped crooked, he looked more statue-like compared to Lu Shi earlier. As for Song Yiyi, Sheng jumped out of Lu Shi's arms and onto Song Yiyi's body, scratching her wildly and causing her to stumble. When Song Yiyi screamed and tried to grab it, it hopped back into Lu Shi's arms. Lu Shi took out a few $100 bills from her wallet and threw them on Song Yi's face. Medical expenses, keep the change. On the day Lu Shi took the urn containing Zhang Sheng's ashes to the grasslands, Chen Suzhen cried in front of the car and claimed she wouldn't let her leave unless she drove over her body. Lu Shi raised an eyebrow and started the car, switched gears, and stepped on the accelerator all in one go. Fortunately, Zhang Chen was able to pull Chen Suzhen aside in time, or else her nightmare might have actually come true. Upon reaching the grasslands, Lu Shi chose a windy day and took the urn containing Zhang Sheng's ashes out of the tent. 2 hunting dogs followed her, growling threateningly at Chen Suzhen, Zhang Chen, and Lu Nanyu in the distance, keeping them at bay. The wind was strong that day, and the ashes dispersed quickly in the breeze. Lu Shi threw the ashes into the sky, watching the 3 people chasing the wind and laughing at their ridiculousness. They will never get Zhang Sheng. In Jiang's living room, Lu Shi was seated opposite the entire Zhang family and Lu Nanyu. She took out a recorder from her folder and handed it over. This is what Zhongsheng wanted to give you. Her last words, take it. Chen Sujin took it as if it was a treasure and played the recording in front of everyone. Mom. Zhongsheng's voice was just like when she was alive. Upon hearing it, Chen Sujin broke into tears as if her Sheng was still alive. Mom, I'm dying. I'm quite happy. Life is uninteresting. I guess you're happy. After all, when I'm dead, no one will be in your way any longer. You, Song Yi, and my brother, what a harmonious family. Chen Sujin buried her face into her palm, murmuring in pain, no, Sheng, it's not like this. Feeling guilty, Zhang Chen closed his eyes. Mom, I always thought you weren't a good mother, but does that really matter? You were a good sister to my aunt and a competent first love for my uncle, weren't you? Why were you so good to Song Yi? Do you think you owe her something? When my father died, my uncle wanted to come to comfort you, but my aunt stopped him. They argued in the car and had an accident. Everyone in the room was dumbfounded. Chen Sujin was too shocked to react. She had never imagined that Zhongsheng would know all these things. With a panic-stricken face, she tried to turn off the recorder, but was stopped by Zhang Chen. His face dark, voice faint, he did not look at Chen Sujin. Just said, Mom, keep listening. In the recorder, the demon-like voice of Zhongsheng continued. Mom, you must feel very guilty. So you took Song Yi into our house and treated her better than you treated your own daughter. You watched as your own daughter was treated horribly, just to alleviate your guilt. You turn a blind eye to the illicit relationship between Lu Nenyu and Song Yi. Do you want me to suffer just like my aunt did? Or do you think it's okay for me to take some injustices because I'm your biological child? Do you believe this is how you atone for your sins to my aunt? How ridiculous. Mom, Zhang Chen held the recorder tightly. His voice unbelievably hard. Is what she, Sheng, said true? No, Chen Sujin's face was pale. It's true, Song Yi, who had been playing on her phone in a daze, suddenly spoke up. Well, she looked up at Chen Sujin and Zhang Chen. Her expression seemed to say, I'm done pretending. I'm laying my cards on the table. You, she pointed at Chen Sujin. You destroyed my family and caused the death of my parents. Did you really think by pretending to be kind to me that I would forgive you? Do you think I hate Zhongsheng and deliberately oppose her? Actually, you're wrong. On the contrary, I feel sorry for her, and sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh. But looking at the two of you, her biological mother and brother, you both act so nonchalantly, and so I don't feel guilty at all. How does it feel to lose a loved one? Doesn't the relationship between me, Lu Nenyu, and Zhongsheng seem familiar? It's just like you, the sister, the man who views the sister as his first love, and his current girlfriend who is the sister's younger sister. It's just that I wasn't as successful as you. Lu Nenyu fell in love with Zhongsheng. But what does that matter? She ended up in a worse state. Haha. She laughed hysterically. Do you know how much effort I put into all of this? Now, how does it feel? Aro. Chen Sujin suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted due to the shock. The dramatic scene ended with the sound of an ambulance siren. Chen Sujin was lifted onto an ambulance, and Zhang Chen followed. Lu Nenyu stood there like a soulless shell. Seeing this, Song Yi sneered and returned to her room. She also left and went home. She buried her face in Shengsheng's neck and silently charged her phone. The ending of the story was a bit shocking. It felt like someone with a remote control had suddenly switched channels from a family drama to a suspense thriller. That night, after everyone had left, Lu Nenyu knocked on Song Yi's door. With a disdainful look from Yi, he suddenly strangled her. Song Yi was dead, murdered by Lu Nenyu. After committing a murder, he called the police to turn himself in. By the time the police broke into his place, he was sitting on the couch with a voice recorder in his hand. There was a certain sense of liberation in the woman's voice coming from the recorder. Lu Nenyu, I once sought your resolute decision, but at the brink of life and death, I understood that I, too, have the right to choose. I no longer love you, and I wish for you to feel pain and sorrow. I also wish that we may never meet again in all of eternity. He had listened to this sentence over and over again until the police forcefully took him away. The voice recorder was also seized as evidence and sealed in the evidence room. Afterward, Zhang Chen made many attempts through his contacts, but he never managed to retrieve it. Perhaps there were still words that Xianxia wanted to say to him in that recorder. Even if they were words that might make one feel utterly uncomfortable, he would have gladly heard them all, even if it included scoldings. Unfortunately, he could no longer hear his sister's voice. His feelings towards Song Yi were not as complicated as his mother's. He merely saw Yi as a guest, considering her unfortunate background. He thought they, as siblings, should be kind to her. Moreover, Song Yi was always gentle and kind. Little did he know, beneath the facade of a frail and kind little flower, lied a sinister intention. And his sister, that stubborn sunflower who kept on growing, lost its vitality as he focused on taking care of another flower day after day. Eventually, she withered away. Chen Suzhen woke up to the news of Song Yi's death, and she showed no response, uttering no words. Did she resent Song Yi? Perhaps. Besides her daily shrinking body that reminded her that she's still human, the rest of her was no different from a lifeless puppet. The doctor told Chen Suzhen no longer had the will to live. She started throwing up blood and lost weight drastically, transforming into a weak skeleton. The doctor said that the cure for heart disease lies within the heart. But Zhang Chen knew, no one can cure Chen Suzhen's heart disease. All the people linked to her and her miserable past are now dead. He suddenly thought of Zhang Sheng, who was once struggling with depression. He felt that Chen Suzhen's eyes now closely resembled Zhang Sheng's back then, despair, colorless and world-wearied. Chen Suzhen died in the second winter. The doctor said she had intentionally worn herself out. She truly did not want to live, eating and sleeping little until her body was ultimately worn out. Zhang Chen silently held a funeral for her, shedding not a single tear. He felt that he could barely hold on as the pain engulfed him like a tsunami, squeezing his heart. Each breath he took, his chest would throb with pain. He could taste the bitterness that Zhang Sheng had experienced while struggling in despair. Zhang Chen attempted to communicate with Lu Shi about burying Chen Suzhen near Zhang Sheng's gravesite. Lu Shi declined, giving him a punch, and decided to relocate the graves overnight. Zhang Chen weakly smiled, then proceeded to bury Chen Suzhen's ashes in another cemetery. "I'm leaving," he informed Lu Shi. "Did you catch the disease as well?" Lu Shi sneered at him. Zhang Chen shook his head, his hand uncontrollably clutching the fabric over his heart, as if trying to ease his breathing. "No, I am leaving this place. I don't care. What I mean is, could you please pay a visit to Xianxia every month? I probably will not come back. I do not need your reminder." Upon hearing Lu Shi's cold reply, he understood that as per Zhang Xianxia's will, Lu Shi visits the cemetery almost every week to burn paper money for her spirit, ensuring her needs in the afterlife. Does he need to show off his virtues by reminding her? Then, goodbye. Didn't you say you will never come back? Right? After Zhang Chen left, Lu Shi squatted down and repeatedly cleaned the portrait on the tombstone. "Zhang Sheng, you better be doing well down here. Given the amount of paper money I'm burning for you, you should be among the top 500 in the underworld. By the time I get down there, I can save myself from struggling for 50 years and enjoy life in style, right?" Suddenly, a snowflake drifted down from the sky onto her eyelashes. "All right, you," Lu Shi chuckled, "you have really improved your capabilities. This snow will be considered as you shedding it for me." She rubbed her eyes. "We'll meet again, right? Of course."